Welcome to Her Own Boss, the podcast and community designed to help you find your inner entrepreneur. Her Own Boss is created by Anissa, Ben, Sarah, Lucy, Nikki, and me, Megan, as we start our careers and learn from the inspiring women who can help us along the way.
Hi everyone, this is your host Nikki, and I'm back today talking to Sonya Barlow, award-winning founder of Like-Minded Females Network, TEDx speaker, and diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. In this episode, Sonya shares with us how we should view our failures and, more importantly, how we can overcome them and build resilience in the process. I found this minisode super helpful, and I hope you do too. Enjoy!
This episode is sponsored both by Rise, created by Barclays, and Barclays Eagle Labs. Rise and Eagle Labs are on a mission to support female founders shape the future of entrepreneurship by providing access to networks, mentorship, and training. Search Rise, created by Barclays, or Barclays Eagle Labs to find out more.
Hi Sonya.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me back. I really enjoyed our first conversation, so I think this one's going to be super good.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. And kind of the inspiration behind doing this mini-sode is, obviously I think failure is something that everyone deals with, and everyone's kind of thresholds for what failure is different. But I think especially this year, we're all kind of learning about bouncing back from failure and building that resilience. And you have done TEDx talk on this, so I feel like you're kind of an expert, or at least are going to be able to articulate this really well for us. So I'm super excited. Could you start out by, I guess, we always like to start out by defining our terms. So what does it mean to fail?
The definition of failure is the inability to achieve one's goal or not to be successful. That is like the dictionary definition. Society's definition to fail is to get things wrong, is to make a mistake. It's something that we should be both afraid of doing, and then through a sentiment of, if you fail, don't tell anyone, because how could you have done that in the first place?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting when you kind of contrast the dictionary definition with society's definition. And I guess, what do you think the kind of process is of failure? Why do you think how do I phrase this? How do we kind of identify when we failed and kind of not let ourselves get bogged down by it or get discouraged?
Yeah, great question. I mean, ultimately, the reason why I delivered my TED Talk, Failure Comes Before Resilience, is because I realized that it's through those failures and attempts to try to succeed, which didn't necessarily turn out as obvious successes, that I was able to achieve the life that I'm living now. Meaning that I have failed more times than I've probably succeeded, especially in corporate life. I failed probation, I failed my jobs, I have failed to look after my health, I failed to start a PhD, which I was super amped about. But at the same time, I am extremely grateful for being able to attempt and being brave enough to try. And so, to answer your question, and it's actually something my mother said to me, which I'm probably taking the credit for now, is he said failure is a temporary disruptor, meaning it's just diverting your route to the end goal. Something I kind of discuss very often to make it really easy is, it's a Friday night and you're going to meet your friends for dinner or for drinks, right? And you've planned a route via Google Maps or TfL, and the tube doesn't work, or there's a delay, or there's a distraction, or there's a roadblock, or there's a car stuck in the middle. It doesn't mean you're going to stop yourself going to dinner. It just means you're going to find a different route so that you can get there in the end. So it might take you 15 minutes longer, it may take you half an hour longer, but you're still going to get there because that was your ultimate goal. And if you don't get there, but you call your friends and say, hey, well, I can't actually get to this location, can we change the plans or adapt? Again, that isn't failing, that's just aligning a different measure of success. So the point being that we shouldn't be so bogged down when we fail. We should be celebrating the fact that we gave it a try and take away the key learnings from every situation we were in.
Yeah, I love that. So many good sound bites there. First of all, I love the term temporary disruptor or temporary disruption. I wrote that down when I was watching your TED Talk. But then also this idea of celebrating the fact that we even tried, because sometimes if you're wanting to start a business or go for a job, it takes a lot to hype yourself up to just take that first step. And when you fail, it can just feel so final. But what you do need to celebrate is the fact that you did it in the first place, and that means you can kind of keep trying again. And so your TED Talk was called Failure to Resilience. Could you define what resilience means for us?
Yeah. So failure comes before resilience ultimately was an ode to how we need to fail and how we must give things a try, learn from the mini successes that that attempt has driven for us, understand what we could have done better. And the resilience piece is fundamentally equating the skill of being resilient to a muscle. So the same way that you go to the gym and you know train your muscles, the same way that we're asked to train our mind muscle, the same way we're trying to even train the ability to cook or clean. It's resilience is very much the same. So I equate resilience to a muscle that we must train. And the only way that we're going to train it is by identifying that something didn't necessarily go the way we planned, but then creating a process or a plan at the back of it to see how else we can adapt the route, or just by celebrating it.
Yeah, I like that. I like kind of comparing resilience to a muscle. For you, I mean, there might not be kind of one kind of generic way to train this muscle and identify our failures, but maybe it would help if you gave an example of something that you've done in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to start. I think that the interesting thing is this morning I just had a conversation with a young university graduate who has just been through a same or similar experience as to what I did. And what I mean by that is, unfortunately, you go into a workplace thinking you're going to be there for a longer period of time, or you're going to fit in, you're going to feel like you belong. Or you're going to be a part of the team. And not so long ago, I was in a dispute with my employer. I wasn't able to stay more than a few months, and I just wasn't in a good condition based on what was happening internally and externally. I failed in 3 ways. I was meant to start a PhD, meaning that I had planned for it, I had put it on social media, I had saved for it, I'd even bought a whole new wardrobe for it, right? And I'd actually even booked my first semester train tickets. So for me, that was a failure because it's something I'd wanted to do for so many years. The second was I wasn't able to look after myself. And so I was on sick leave for 5 weeks. So as confident or as charismatic, or the fact that I can even have this conversation now, well, actually in those 5 weeks, I couldn't even string together a sentence and I started stuttering, which is something I'd never done before. And the last point in that experience is I failed to hold down a job. And then to answer your question, if it wasn't for those 3 experiences, I wouldn't have decided to give myself 12 to 18 months to become an entrepreneur, take time out from a corporate culture and see if I can make it on my own in some shape or form. And so I needed to go through that experience for me to come out of it thinking, do you know what? I'm not ready to go into a 9-to-5 corporate structure. I need some space to myself to identify who I am, what I can do. And though it wasn't necessarily in the plans, and I'd planned to maybe go into self-employment in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years when I had a bit more saving, I just had to adapt my timeline. And now I'd say within a year of making that decision, I think I've done quite well. And I'm quite impressed with the successes that I've achieved. And that's not to say I've succeeded as to where I wanted to be financially or emotionally or physically or even through the clients that I built up. But that's to say that if I hadn't quit my job, I probably wouldn't have been in a position where I'm now able to write a book. If I hadn't kind of not been able to start my PhD, I wouldn't be in a position where I'm now able to kind of move houses and kind of adapt to my own timelines. So there's so many things that I've learned from that experience, which I'm extremely proud of. But it's not to say in that moment I wasn't like in tears and upset. Of course I was.
Yeah.
But you've got to kind of pick yourself up and become a bit more resilient and what are my next steps and what am I going to achieve and how am I going to learn from this?
Yeah, I really like that. I think you're doing so much, and you're right. Again, it's about celebrating that the fact that you took that first step, because you don't know what would have come from it if you didn't take it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're telling that story, I feel like the kind of steps you should take if you've done something and you feel like it's been a failure is identify what that failure is. Why do you see it as a failure? And how does that kind of make you feel? What does it mean? And then it's all about, well, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to adapt and, keep moving forward? And then again, at the end, always about reflecting and celebrating how far you've come. Would you say that is generally what you did?
Yeah, and just to add, so at the beginning of COVID, as like most of the nation, I started running. I'm not a jogger, I'm not a great runner. I just did it to kind of challenge myself. And there's something that they repeatedly say on the Nike Run app, which is what I use. I know it's kind of like cheesy, but when you are guided by the coach and you're running, the coach is always like, look, celebrate the fact that you've started because that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
The essence is that we are And we're in this like constant race and time and state of busyness, that actually the busier you are, the more you've succeeded, or the busier you are, the better you are. And it's like, none of that is true. We don't need to wait until the end goal, until what we achieve, what we want to achieve, to celebrate. We should just be proud of the fact that we got out of bed today, like 2 minutes earlier than we were meant to. We should be proud that instead of 3 biscuits, I had 2. You know, I'm not able to run, and my run times don't get any faster.
I'm exactly the same.
But the fact that I can wake up 3 times a week and try and attempt that, the fact that I can now go out and my knees don't hurt, the fact that I can go out and I know what route to take, that's what I'm celebrating. I'm not getting to the end of the 5K and thinking, wow, I'm a failure because I didn't do it in enough time. I'm thinking, wow, I've smashed it because I got up and I didn't have to do this, and it's a new experience and something new learning. I feel like I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
And I think it's like a really good takeaway message to kind of sum up almost, you know, the whole Minisode. Celebrate the fact that you even tried. I think, yeah, that's huge. And the running analogy, I personally can identify with it. I think a lot of people can from lockdown, because a lot of people started running, and, you know, we didn't have to do that, but the fact that we did it and we continue to do it, I think is great. Do you have any final or closing thoughts on bouncing back after failure?
Yeah, completely. You know, the truth is sometimes it's going to suck and give your time to mourn. You don't need more than 3 days to mourn, right? And from a spirituality and a faith perspective, actually, a lot of spiritual leaders and a lot of leaders that are in the energy space say that, you know, your energies attract the energy that you want. So if you are in time of mourning, meaning if you are upset about something, yeah, be upset. Take a whole day out, watch Netflix, eat Ben and Jerry's, cool. And then get that out of your system, wake up, get up, think, right, what are the mini learnings? What are the milestones that I hit? What are the tiny things that I'm really glad that I even did and I attempted and I was able to do? Pocket them into larger buckets and then start identifying them with opportunities that you can then go for, and be in a place where you know, daily you take a minute and you just reflect and think, right, what have I just done today that I'm super happy about, that I am confident about, that I can celebrate? What can I do better next time? Most definitely think about that too. And where have I come from this journey of being quite sad and upset that something didn't work out, to using that energy to create this whole new opportunity for myself?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. And actually kind of writing down the small successes that I'm proud of is something that I've just started doing. And it makes such a difference, because it's so easy to focus on the big failures and forget all the smaller successes. So I think that's a really good closing note. Thank you.
No, of course. I mean, thank you so much. And it's the last thing I'd say is, it's so ironic that I literally did a TED talk on failing, because when you fail, you feel like, sometimes you feel like a disaster. And it's just, I just find it so funny that I had to fail for me to be able to do a TED talk on that. Like, if I hadn't failed, I wouldn't have a TED talk on it. That's the kind of thing I'm trying to share. So, you know, your failure could actually just be a door to a new opportunity that you didn't even consider.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can find out more about Her Own Boss at herownboss.co.uk or by searching for us on LinkedIn and Instagram.